A desperate single dad working 3 jobs got a shocking offer from a billionaire woman, $1 million for one night of companionship. With overdue bills piling up and his daughter needing everything, he had to choose between money that would solve all his problems and his integrity. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Daniel Parker adjusted his tie for the 10th time as he walked through the marble lobby of the Grandview Hotel. His black suit was borrowed from his brother, his shoes were polished but old, and his hands shook slightly as he checked the address on the crumpled paper. Room 2847. He was supposed to deliver catering supplies to some fancy corporate event, but the elevator seemed to take forever to reach the 28th floor. At 32, Daniel had been struggling as a single father for 3 years since his wife died in a car accident. His 6-year-old daughter Sophie was everything to him, and he worked 3 different jobs just to keep their small apartment and pay for her daycare. Tonight's catering gig was supposed to help him catch up on overdue bills, but he had a feeling something was wrong when the client insisted on paying cash and meeting him personally instead of going through the catering company. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the 28th floor. Daniel pushed his cart of supplies down the quiet hallway, counting room numbers until he reached 2847. Before he could knock, the door opened, revealing a woman who took his breath away. She was probably in her early 40s, with perfectly styled auburn hair and emerald green eyes that seemed to see right through him. Her black dress was clearly expensive, and she wore jewelry that probably cost more than Daniel made in a year. Everything about her screamed wealth and power, but there was something sad in her eyes that made her seem almost lonely. "Mr. Parker?" she asked, her voice smooth and confident. "Yes, ma'am. I have your catering order." Daniel gestured to his cart, which was loaded with champagne, expensive cheeses and gourmet appetizers. "Please come in." She stepped aside, and Daniel wheeled the cart into what was clearly the hotel's most expensive suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city lights sparkling below, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. "I'm Victoria Blackstone," the woman said, closing the door behind him. "Please leave the cart and sit down. We need to talk." Daniel felt confused. "Ma'am, I just need to set up the food and then I'll be out of your way." The catering company said this was for a business meeting. Victoria poured herself a glass of wine from an expensive bottle on the table. "There is no business meeting, Mr. Parker. And there is no catering company. I hired a private service to contact you specifically." "I don't understand." Daniel remained standing, suddenly feeling very uncomfortable. Victoria sat down on the plush sofa and studied him carefully. "Sit down, please. I promise I'm not going to hurt you." Daniel perched on the edge of a chair, ready to leave quickly if needed. "Mrs. Blackstone, I think there's been some kind of mistake. I'm just a delivery guy. I don't know why you would specifically want to hire me." "I know exactly who you are, Daniel Parker. You're 32 years old, a widower, father to Sophie Parker, age 6. You work at Morrison's Restaurant, clean all-night services, and Parker Catering. You live at 412 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Your wife Emma died 3 years ago, and you've been raising Sophie alone ever since." Daniel shot to his feet, his heart pounding. "How do you know all that? Are you some kind of stalker?" Victoria held up her hand calmly. "Please sit down. I know it's frightening, but I can explain everything." "I'm leaving." Daniel started toward the door. "I'll pay you $1 million to stay for 1 hour. Daniel stopped dead in his tracks. "What did you say?" $1 million. "To sit here and talk with me for 1 hour." Victoria opened a briefcase that was sitting on the coffee table. It was filled with neat stacks of $100 bills. "This is real money, Mr. Parker. More than enough to pay off all your debts, buy a house for you and Sophie, and give her the kind of life you've always wanted her to have." Daniel stared at the money, his mind racing. $1 million was more money than he had ever dreamed of having. It would solve every problem in his life. Sophie could go to the best schools, they could live in a real house with a yard, and he wouldn't have to work 3 jobs just to survive. "What's the catch?" he asked suspiciously. Victoria's cheeks turned slightly pink. "I want you to spend the night with me." Daniel felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "You want me to?" He couldn't even finish the sentence. "I want companionship, Mr. Parker. Someone to talk to hold me, to make me feel less alone for 1 night. I'm not asking you to do anything you're uncomfortable with. Just be here with me." Daniel backed toward the door again. "Lady, I don't know what kind of person you think I am, but I'm not for sale. Everyone has a price, Mr. Parker. And you need this money more than most people." "Not that much." Daniel's voice was firm despite his shaking hands. "I may be broke, but I'm not desperate enough to sell myself to some rich woman who thinks money can buy anything. Victoria looked surprised. Mr. Parker, please reconsider. This money could change your daughter's entire life. And what kind of father would I be if I earned that money by doing this? What would I tell Sophie when she asks where it came from? Victoria stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. You could tell her anything. That you won the lottery, that you got a better job, that a relative left you an inheritance. She would never have to know. I would know. Daniel's voice was quiet but determined. And someday she would probably figure it out. I won't have my daughter grow up thinking her father was the kind of man who could be bought. Even for $1 million? Especially for $1 million. Daniel looked at the briefcase full of money one more time, then forced himself to look away. Mrs. Blackstone, I don't know why you chose me for this, but you chose the wrong person. I'm going to leave now, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't contact me again. Victoria turned around, and Daniel was shocked to see tears in her eyes. Please don't go yet. Let me explain why I did this. I don't want to hear it. My son would have been your age, Victoria said quietly. He died in Afghanistan 5 years ago. He was a good man like you. He had principles like you. And I miss him so much that sometimes I can't breathe. Daniel stopped moving toward the door. Ma'am? I've been so lonely since he died that I started hiring companions. Men who would pretend to care about me for money. But they never really cared. They just wanted the money. Victoria wiped her eyes with a tissue. I heard about you from someone who knows your landlord. They said you were a good father, an honest man who worked hard and never complained about his situation. I thought maybe if I offered you enough money you would be different. Different how? I thought maybe you would actually talk to me. Maybe you would hold my hand and let me pretend, just for one night, that someone cared about me for more than my bank account. Daniel felt his anger fading, replaced by something like pity. Mrs. Blackstone, you can't buy affection. Real caring doesn't work that way. I know that now. Victoria sat back down heavily. When you turned down $1 million rather than compromise your principles, I realized that you're exactly the kind of man I thought you were. And that's exactly why you would never accept money to pretend to care about me. Daniel stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. This woman was clearly hurting, but he couldn't help her in the way she was asking. Mrs. Blackstone, I'm sorry about your son. I can't imagine how hard that must be. But what you're asking for, it's not right. Not for you and not for me. Victoria nodded sadly. You're absolutely right. I apologize, Mr. Parker. I should never have put you in this situation. Daniel surprised himself by sitting back down. Can I ask you something? Of course. When was the last time you had a real conversation with someone? Not a business meeting or a transaction, just a normal talk with another person. Victoria thought for a long moment. I honestly can't remember. Maybe before my son died. That's really sad, Daniel said gently. Mrs. Blackstone, you don't need to pay people to talk to you. You just need to talk to the right people. The right people? People who aren't interested in your money. People who need something other than cash. Victoria looked puzzled. Like what? Daniel thought about his own life, about the struggles he faced every day. Like friendship. Like someone to listen to their problems. Like help with things that money can't fix. I don't understand. Daniel made a decision that surprised even him. Mrs. Blackstone, I'll make you a deal. Not for money but as one human being to another. I'll stay and talk with you for an hour, but not as some kind of paid companion. As a friend. Someone who understands what it's like to be lonely. Victoria stared at him. You would do that? Even after I insulted you with that offer? Everyone deserves to have someone to talk to. Even billionaires. Daniel smiled slightly. But we're going to talk as equals. No money, no power games, just two people sharing conversation. Victoria closed the briefcase full of money and pushed it aside. I would like that very much. They talked for 3 hours instead of 1. Victoria told Daniel about her son Michael, who had been a teacher before he joined the military. She showed him pictures and shared memories of a young man who sounded remarkably similar to Daniel in his values and character. Daniel talked about Sophie, about the challenges of raising a daughter alone, and about his fears that he wasn't doing a good enough job as a father. He spoke about his wife Emma and how much he missed having a partner to share the daily joys and worries of parenthood. You're a good father, Victoria said after hearing about Daniel's struggles. Michael used to send me letters about the children he taught. He said the best parents weren't the ones with the most money, but the ones who showed up every day and loved their children consistently. Some days I feel like I'm failing her, Daniel admitted. She deserves so much more than I can give her. She deserves a father who loves her enough to turn down $1 million to preserve his integrity, Victoria pointed out. That's worth more than money. As the evening went on, Victoria seemed to transform from a cold, powerful businesswoman into someone warmer and more human. Daniel realized that underneath all her wealth and success, she was just a grieving mother who had lost her way. Mrs. Blackstone, can I ask you something personal? Victoria, please. And yes. What would your son think about the way you've been living? Paying people to pretend to care about you? Victoria was quiet for a long time. He would be disappointed in me, she said finally. Michael always said that the most important things in life couldn't be bought or sold. He would hate knowing that I've been trying to purchase something as precious as human connection. It's not too late to change, Daniel said gently. I wouldn't even know where to start. Daniel thought for a moment. What did you love to do before your son died? What made you happy? I used to volunteer at a literacy center teaching adults how to read. And I loved gardening. I had a beautiful garden at my house. Victoria smiled sadly. I gave all that up after Michael died. It seemed pointless. Maybe it's time to try again. Not because you have to, but because those things connected you to other people in a real way. When Daniel finally left the hotel that night, Victoria walked him to the door. Thank you, she said simply. This evening meant more to me than you could possibly know. Thank you too, Daniel replied. It's been a long time since I had a real adult conversation that wasn't about work or Sophie's school. Victoria hesitated for a moment. Daniel, I want to help you and Sophie, but not in the way I originally suggested. Would you allow me to do something for you? As a friend? Daniel was immediately suspicious. What kind of something? Sophie's school has a scholarship program for children of single parents. I'm on the board of directors and I could nominate her for a full scholarship through high school. It wouldn't be charity, she would have to maintain good grades and follow all the same rules as other students. Daniel considered this carefully. That would be based on her merit, not on money changing hands? Completely based on merit. I've seen her school records, she's a bright child. She deserves the opportunity. I would appreciate that, Daniel said. But only if it's legitimate. Victoria smiled. It is. And Daniel? Would you consider having coffee with me sometime? Just as friends. I think I'd like to learn more about being a real person again. Daniel nodded. I'd like that too. 6 months later, Victoria had returned to volunteering at the literacy center and had started a beautiful garden at her estate. She and Daniel had become genuine friends, meeting for coffee once a week to talk about their children, their fears, and their hopes for the future. Sophie received the scholarship and flourished in her new school. She never knew about the hotel room conversation, but she did know that her father had somehow made friends with a nice lady who helped people learn to read. Daniel still worked hard to support his daughter, but he no longer felt completely alone in the world. Victoria had become like a mentor to him, helping him navigate some of the challenges of single parenthood while learning from his example about living with integrity and purpose. Victoria never again tried to buy companionship or affection. Instead, she built real relationships based on mutual respect and genuine caring. She often told people that the best investment she had ever made was the $1 million she didn't spend, because losing that money had helped her find something far more valuable, authentic human connection. And sometimes, when Daniel tucked Sophie into bed at night, he would think about that evening in the hotel room and feel grateful that he had chosen his principles over financial security. Because in the end, his answer hadn't just changed Victoria's life, it had changed his own, proving that some things really were worth more than money. The friendship between a struggling single father and a lonely billionaire became proof that real relationships couldn't be purchased, only earned through honesty, kindness, and the courage to do what was right even when it cost everything.